I think that with the confluence of both the proliferation of technologies that allow distributors to provide a variety of different interactive services, whether you're talking about streaming of content or whether you're talking about tethered, untethered services, whether you're talking about continual electronic sell-through to download services, each of those represent something that's actually vital in the digital media marketplace for consumers, and that is to be able to access and essentially consume that content in a variety of modes and models. I think that the truth is if you look at where the dollars come from, it either comes from the consumer's wallet or it comes from a subsidized distribution. Consumer model, obviously, you have the pay-for-play model where you either have a subscription or you download a piece of content, or it's subsidized through streaming services, through interactive or radio services, where you have an advertiser who's trying to access an audience. So when you start matching your content to audiences, there's a potential for upward pressure in pricing, which then allows you to potentially increase value. I don't think you can actually stop that. I think you just have to figure out how to actually get your content involved in those distribution models. I don't think it's a good idea to actually try to suppress those models.
People are able to create their own content. People are able to use your content to create new derivative works. And it's not, I'm not saying that it's going to make up the big hole from record sales, but every little bit helps. So I think one of the things that's really a challenge is that for the folks that want to use media and want to use copyrighted works in a legal way, it's just really hard to do that. There's a lot of barriers to that. And if you were here for the last conversation, there's a lot of talks about CPAs and lawyers and all that stuff, and I understand that that's all required. But there's a lot of people out there that want to pay you for your content, but they don't know how, and when they want to pay you, a lot of times they get shown the door.
So I think the fact that people are, in my opinion, are willing to do the right thing but don't know how. So if we could streamline the licensing process, if we could also educate, I'm huge on education. We live in a society today where information is just a keystroke away. If we can actually educate people on how to do the right thing easily, I think that in and of itself will solve some of the problems. The other element which I think stops a lot of people is that the technology moves so fast, and I see this in my litigation as well as in the transactional aspect of it. Frankly, we're kind of like the legal speed bump. Business is moving so quickly, and yet people are still trying to figure out what they can do, what they can't do, what's permitted.
From the label side, you're in a time of complete reinvention, essentially. So you're seeing, as Michael said, the decimation of the physical music business, right? I mean, Tower Records, the Virgin Megastores, these traditional retailers are not even here anymore, or closed, essentially. And you're seeing kind of the flattening or perhaps the cooling off of this hot digital and mobile growth space, the decline of ringtones, smartphones killing things off, free ringtone clubs like Mixer. So, it's a time where a label that used to be at kind of the central piece of the economy really needs to look out at these other markets and figure out how do you reinvent, how do you expand. And one model that's been kicked around, I think, quite liberally is the notion of this 360 model. It's a very interesting concept, and I think the other thing, I think Sam touched on this up front, which is extremely important, I think, for the road ahead, and certainly from my perspective, probably the biggest piece of the strategy, but just to think about music as a service, if you will.
Labels are now increasingly signing 360 deals, basically participating in the artist's ancillary revenue streams, if you will, not just recorded music, but merchandise and touring, while at the same time providing these services to these artists. Can you talk about how these models have been faring?
If you can create a win-win situation, if you can help these labels help you, if you need somebody to coordinate for you and they're capable of doing that and everybody can make money, then you can still have a great relationship. There's no bad guy here. It's just about you don't get what's fair, you get what you negotiate. So be very, very careful going into a 360 deal. Just make sure that you are getting value. If they want the entire universe, then they better actually be able to perform in the entire universe.
And I think it makes some sense for some. If you're Madonna, you're not going to want to have all your eggs in the same basket. If you're a new developing artist that's looking at all these distribution channels that Michael just showed us are gone, it may make sense to have your eggs in one basket with a party that can help you across the board.
But here's the reality is when you go to sign the contract, Most artists are sitting there and they're either take it or you leave it. You're going to walk away from a deal, you're going to take it. And if the labels, in all due respect, I'm not disagreeing that they don't need the revenues, but if there's no resistance to adding more and more and more to what the artist can pay, and you're not getting any kind of resistance because people want that deal so badly, why would you back up? We won't get anywhere without participation support from the artists.
Now we're in the age where you could actually do a zero deal, and that's what Jeff Price was talking about earlier as well. So it really runs the gamut now, and the metrics are there, the marketing tools are there, the top spin, the SEO is there, where people can actually function without a record label if they don't want to do that deal.
Right. Trying to yank it away from the U.S. perspective for a second there, because what's happened is it's the question of this subsidy. You saw these YouTube, basically subsidized per play video payments for the last couple of years throughout lots of foreign territories, which labels and by extension all these other parties were the beneficiaries. That stopped basically, and it probably stopped because there is not an existence of a monetizable advertising markets in lots of places outside the United States.
Right.
So Vivo right now, you can't see it. If you want to watch Shakira in Colombia, you can't see it.
Right.
Because they're not serving up, they're not active there, nor is Google allowing premium video to be served on YouTube right now.
That's right.
So there's all these big holes that are out there. It's actually a big opportunity from my perspective, and it's probably, at least in my time at Sony, the most disruptive thing I saw in the last few years, much more than the piracy that's been going on for quite some time.
That's
because
exactly right.
You can't market in a lot of these territories. An artist comes in and goes, what are you doing for me on YouTube? I can't see it, basically.
Right. Promotional opportunity follows that piece of content as well, which means the brands now who really want to reach those segments feel more compelled to push up the value, if you will, in actually monetizing the content. That's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Ownership is still, according to the focus groups I've seen, it's still big in people's minds. Where do you guys see this going? Is so the shift from product to service, from product to access happening, and how will it look like? Is it going to be ad supported? What are the price points? What are we doing?
The ownership model isn't going away. It's actually just the value of ownership is just changing. The rights are still there, and therefore the requirement to figure out who you have to pay is still there.
We all want to talk as if we have ubiquitous wireless. I mean, how many people have a good signal in this room right now? I mean, anybody feel like pulling 360K through your phone right now? Let alone if we're all trying to pull 360K. So I love the cloud-based stuff. It's super, but we got a ways to go.
The idea that you would force someone to only accept what's actually coming out to the airways is sending us back about 30, 40 years.